It started with Scraps. Lena was only 7 when she first saw the dog, if it even was a dog. It looked more like a shadow, hulking and silent, crouched behind the chain-link fence behind her grandmother's cottage. It never barked, never growled. It simply stared. She had gone out that morning, barefoot and still wearing her flannel pajamas, to throw away old leftovers. The sun was still stretching above the pines, and the frost hadn't yet melted off the grass. That's when she saw him. A massive, dark creature, matted fur and amber eyes glowing through the mist. Most children would have screamed, "Run," told an adult. But Lena just froze, and so did the dog. They stared at each other. Two lonely souls who, for reasons unknown, didn't feel afraid of one another. Instead of dumping the food into the bin, Lena slowly bent down and placed it on a flat rock by the fence. Cold rice, a few pieces of pork, half a biscuit. She didn't say a word, and the dog didn't move, until she turned to walk back inside. Then she heard it. Soft, deliberate steps. She turned just in time to see him approach the rock, sniff the food, and eat it with quiet desperation. No growling, no panic, just hunger. From that day on, Lena saved Scraps. Her mother didn't know. Her grandmother didn't either. It became their little secret, hers and the shadow by the fence. Every afternoon after school, Lena would sneak a bit of food. Pieces of bread, leftover chicken, sometimes even apples. She'd wrap them in napkins, carry them in her jacket pocket, and make her way to the backyard just before sunset. The dog was always there, always waiting. And each time, he inched a little closer. Lena named him Shadow. Not just because of his color, but because of how he moved. Always quiet, always watchful, always half hidden in the corners of her world. He never let her touch him. Not really. But after a few weeks, when she knelt down to leave food, he no longer waited until she walked away. He'd eat while she was still there, sitting silently beside him, legs crossed and jacket zipped up to her chin. Sometimes, she'd talk to him, whisper about her day, her teachers, the mean boy in class who called her war orphan, how she missed her dad and hated how quiet her mom had become. Shadow never responded, but he always listened, and that was enough. Winter crept in like a quiet thief. The trees turned bare, the winds sharper, and Lena's fingers red with cold as she continued her daily ritual. Even on snowy afternoons, when her breath came out in thick clouds, she brought food. Shadow's coat grew thicker. He'd sometimes shake snow from his back with a grunt, like an old soldier shrugging off another battle. One day, Lena brought him a scarf. Her father's old military green one, worn and soft. She had found it buried deep in a drawer, still smelling faintly of tobacco and rain. "Here," she said, wrapping it gently around Shadow's neck while he stood frozen, unflinching. He let her. And that night, for the first time, he placed his head against her shoulder. But then, he vanished. It was a Thursday. Lena remembered because it was pizza day at school, and she had saved half her slice to share. She came home, ran out back as always, and nothing. No Shadow. No paw prints in the snow. Just stillness. Lena waited every day that week. Every day the week after. She left food. Called softly. Sat outside until her fingers ached. Nothing. Her mother said it was just a stray, that it probably moved on. Her grandmother said maybe it got hit by a car. That's what happens with wild dogs. But Lena didn't cry. She didn't believe either of them. Because she knew. He wasn't just a stray. He wasn't just a dog. He was something else. And he was gone. The next spring, her mother said they were moving. New job. New town. New school. Lena packed up her clothes, her sketchbooks, and the empty dog bowl she had once begged her mom to buy just in case. The green scarf was folded into her suitcase. Shadow became a story she stopped telling. People didn't believe her anyway. Said he was just imaginary, something a sad little girl made up to feel less alone. Maybe He was. But Lena never stopped looking over her shoulder, never stopped wondering, never stopped hoping that maybe, one day, the shadow by the fence would come back. It had been 10 years. 10 long, aching years since Lena last saw him. The town looked smaller now. The roads narrower, the houses older, like they had aged while she wasn't looking. Lena stepped out of her mother's car, the gravel crunching beneath her boots as she stared at the porch of her late grandmother's house. The same peeling paint, the same crooked step. Only the silence was louder now. She hadn't planned to return. But grief has a strange way of calling people home. They arrived under gray skies. Her grandmother's funeral was quiet, barely attended. A few neighbors, an old friend from church. Her mother kept wiping her eyes, but Lena stayed still, holding the urn with both hands as if afraid it would fall through her fingers and disappear like everything else had. Afterward, Lena wandered. The town was still asleep. Faded signs, rusted fences, forgotten corners that once held memories now too distant to summon. She didn't know what she was looking for until she found herself at the edge of the woods. The path was overgrown, but she knew it. Her feet did. Muscle memory, not logic. She followed the bend in the trail, past the old shed with the blue tarp roof, and stopped at a small clearing near the back of the property. The fence was gone, but the stone was still there. The flat rock she used to play scraps on. She knelt down, brushed off the moss, her fingers trembling. She wasn't ready for what she saw next. From the trees, a figure emerged, slow, deliberate, almost regal in the way it moved. A dog. Massive, black with streaks of gray, its gait uneven, favoring one leg, but its eyes, amber and sharp, had not dulled. Lena didn't breathe. The dog stared. Then it moved forward, one step at a time, until it stood just a few feet from her. He was older now, scarred. His fur matted in places, thinned in others. But it was him. "Shadow," she whispered. He didn't bark. He just looked at her. And sat. It wasn't until he sat that she noticed the chain. Around his neck, tangled in fur, hung a worn, rusted dog tag. She reached out, her fingers brushing against the cold metal, and froze. Captain Elias Monroe, September 18th, Bravo Unit, K9. Her father. The tag she had never seen. The one they said was lost in the field. The one her mother never spoke of. Lena collapsed to her knees. Shadow didn't move, just leaned gently against her as she wept into his fur. The next morning, Lena sat on the kitchen floor beside Shadow. He was curled on the rug, his breathing shallow but steady. He hadn't eaten much. Age had caught him in ways time didn't forgive. She dialed a number she hadn't used in years. Cole, her father's closest friend in the unit. A man who'd visited once, maybe twice after the funeral, then vanished. "Hello?" "It's Lena," she said. "Elias Monroe's daughter." A pause, then a breath. "Lena," he repeated, like the name had been locked away. "What's wrong?" "It's Shadow. He came back." Long silence. "He what?" "He has my dad's dog tag. He found me." Cole didn't ask questions. "I'll be there by evening." Cole arrived in a dusty red truck. Older now, with deep lines under his eyes and a limp in his right leg. But his voice still carried weight. Shadow didn't bark, didn't rise. He simply looked. And Cole fell to his knees. "You found her," he whispered, eyes wet. "All these years. And you kept the promise." Lena sat on the porch steps, clutching the tag. "What promise?" she asked. So Cole told her. 10 years ago, during a covert operation, Elias and Shadow were ambushed in the mountains. There was no backup, no escape. Elias had been hit. Badly. He knew he wouldn't make it. But Shadow was still alive, and trained to carry messages. He tied the tag to the collar, whispered something into Shadow's ear. "Find Lena. Keep her safe." Then, he pushed him away. Cole's voice broke. We never found Elias, just blood and tracks. We thought Shadow was gone too. Until now. That night, Lena lay beside Shadow on the floor. She told him stories, played music, held his paw. He never moved. But he listened, the way he always had. In the morning, he was gone. Still. Peaceful. A warrior's rest. She buried him beneath the old oak tree, wrapped in the scarf her father once wore. The tag placed gently in the soil. Above it, she carved one word into the wood. Loyalty, and beneath it, he never barked. He stood. A month later, Lena returned to the city. But every year, on the same day, she came back. She brought flowers and sat by the tree. Sometimes, when the wind blew just right, she swore she could hear footsteps behind her. Heavy, slow, and a presence that never left. Because some dogs don't leave. They wait. Until the promise is kept. It had been nearly 6 months since Shadow's passing. Spring had come and gone, and Lena had returned to the city. But something about the visit, the way Shadow had appeared, and more so, the tag he wore, refused to leave her mind. It wasn't just closure. It was an opening. A door swinging back to things left unsaid. She couldn't sleep anymore. Night after night, she lay staring at the ceiling. The image of the dog tag burned behind her eyes. There was something incomplete about Cole's story, about the mission, about the way her father had vanished without a trace, declared dead without a body. It started with a question. Why hadn't the army told them Shadow survived? She reopened the official letter that had been sent to her mother all those years ago, the one with the emblem of the United States Army, signed by someone whose name she didn't recognize. She scanned every line. Nowhere did it mention Shadow. She called Cole. "There's more, isn't there?" she asked. His silence confirmed it. Cole met her at a halfway diner 2 towns over. Lena arrived early, sitting by the window and fidgeting with a napkin until he walked in. Slower than before, his limp more noticeable. He ordered coffee. No cream, no sugar, just heat. Then he slid a folder across the table. "I wasn't supposed to keep this," he said. "But I knew one day, someone would come asking. I just didn't think it'd be you." Lena opened the folder slowly. Inside were photocopies of mission logs, satellite images, transcripts, some redacted, some heavily blacked out, but enough remained. Operation Hallowed Echo. A Black Ops recon deep into enemy territory, officially denied by both the Pentagon and the White House. Her father and 2 others were sent to intercept a convoy suspected of carrying stolen nuclear components. Shadow was part of the K-9 unit assigned for detection. The last communication from Elias Monroe was a distress ping at 0400 hours. After that, radio silence. "He was trying to call something in," Cole said, tapping the edge of the photo. "Something he saw. Something big. But it was never acknowledged. The mission was disavowed." "And Shadow?" Lena asked. Cole looked tired. They didn't want to admit he came back. Because if he came back, someone might ask what else survived. Lena spent the next few weeks chasing ghosts. She filed a FOIA request, Freedom of Information Act, for full details of Operation Hallowed Echo. She received a response. Request denied on grounds of national security. She sent letters to veterans forums, searched databases, joined message boards using anonymous names. Some replies were supportive. Others warned her to stop digging. And then, one message came. From an account called Echo Witness 93. "You don't know what your father did, but you should. Meet me in Elkton. Thursday, noon. Red bench by the lake." Lena showed the message to Cole. He hesitated. Could be nothing. Could be dangerous. "I'm going," she said. Elkton was a town that didn't exist on most maps. A rail stop, a faded diner, and a half-drained lake surrounded by dry trees. Lena found the bench. Red, chipped paint, slightly tilted, and waited. At 12:07 p.m., a man approached, mid-50s, gray beard, military bearing, left eye blind, right hand in a glove. "You're Elias Monroe's kid?" She nodded. He sat. "Name's Garrick. I was with your father." Lena's breath caught. She said nothing. "He found it," Garrick said. "The truck. They were transporting something glowing. Not radioactive, biological, experimental. I don't know what it was, but he sent Shadow to hide. Then he told me to run. He stayed behind. I never saw him again." "Why didn't you tell anyone?" "They would have made me disappear. They tried. I burned everything. Went dark. But Shadow, he remembered. He always does." Back home, Lena sat for hours at her desk, staring at the tag. She realized now, it wasn't just a message of protection. It was a key. A sign that her father had uncovered something the world wasn't ready to face. She wrote everything down, not as an accusation, but as a story. A truth carried in silence, by pause, not words. The book was published under a pseudonym, The Dog That Wouldn't Let Go. It sold few copies, but the ones who read it knew. And they came. Letters, emails, more names, more stories. Shadow had done more than keep a promise. He had carried a truth across a decade. And Lena, she had finally listened. On the anniversary of his passing, she returned to the tree. She didn't speak. She didn't bring flowers. She just laid down beside the roots, the tag in her hand, and whispered, "I found it, Dad." He made sure I did. The wind picked up, software steady, and somewhere beyond the trees, a single paw print formed in the dirt. Fresh, as if he was still watching, waiting, until the story was complete. The book didn't make waves, not at first. It lingered in quiet corners of the internet. Dog lovers, military families, conspiracy forums. Lena hadn't expected more. She'd written it for herself, for Shadow, for her father. But then, something strange happened. An anonymous blog picked up a passage. A single paragraph detailing Operation Hallowed Echo, followed by Lena's line, "Some dogs don't run. They remember." It went viral overnight, not on the news, not in papers, but in whispers. Lena's inbox exploded. Most were condolences. A few were threats. But a surprising number were stories. Others had seen things, known things, pieces of a puzzle too strange to ignore. A former medic who had treated soldiers with burns that didn't behave like burns. A ranger who found a crate sealed with military locks, buried beneath a collapsed bridge. Inside, nothing but claw marks and a single green collar. And one letter. Handwritten. "I served in Bravo unit. I remember the day Monroe left. He wasn't supposed to go. He volunteered. Said it was personal. Said he had to see what they were hiding. He took the dog. Said the dog knew how to get back. He wasn't wrong. Cole warned her not to get dragged in too deep. But she was already there. She had to know what her father saw." She contacted Garrick again. "There's a place," he said. "North Dakota. Old testing range. Decommissioned. Or so they say. Your dad marked it in his notebook before the last mission." The pages Cole gave her had no such marking. But she remembered something else. Something she hadn't understood at the time. The last page of her father's field manual. Scribbled coordinates. A sketch of what looked like a broken tower. She matched it with satellite maps. The place existed. It had no name. Just fences, rust, and silence. Lena didn't tell anyone she was going. She packed light. Camera. Notepad. One change of clothes. Shadow's tag around her neck. The drive took 2 days. The road became gravel. Then dirt. Then memory. The closer she got, the more the world seemed to flatten. Trees thinning into prairie. Air colder than forecast. She drove until the signal disappeared. Until even the birds fell silent. The facility lay beneath the horizon. Fenced off, but abandoned. or so it seemed. She entered through a collapsed section of fence. Old signs warned of radiation, but her Geiger counter stayed quiet. The buildings were gutted, torn apart by time, or something else. Claw marks scored the walls. Not human, not animal, something in between. Inside a storage unit, she found cages, some broken, some sealed, all empty, and in the center of one, a single dog bowl, labeled K991V, Shadow. Her knees buckled. He had been here, before her, after her, always. A voice behind her. You shouldn't be here. She turned. A man in uniform. Not military, not police. Private contractor. He didn't raise a weapon. But his stance said, leave, or you'll wish you had. Lena didn't run. She held out the tag. He found me, she said. Now I need to find him. Find the truth. The man's expression changed. Not softened, but something else. Recognition. He took a step forward, then stopped. You don't know what he saved you from. Then tell me. The man glanced behind him, then back. There were more like him. Dogs, modified, trained for things no dog should do. Most didn't make it. But one remembered its handler, refused orders, escaped. Shadow, Lena whispered. The man nodded. They wanted to find him. He was the last uncontaminated subject, and he vanished. Until now. Until your book. Lena felt her pulse in her ears. My father. What did he see? A mistake. One that couldn't be buried. He let her go. Didn't follow. Didn't stop her. But the next day, her apartment had been searched. Nothing taken. Nothing broken. Just a photo placed on her pillow. Her father. Standing beside a younger Shadow. And a sealed black door behind them marked with only 3 letters. DPT. She showed it to Cole. He paled. That's not a unit. That's a containment protocol. Department of Post-Tactical Bioengineering. Shut down in 07. But some things don't stay shut down. Lena went quiet for a while after that. She didn't write, didn't speak. She just walked. City streets, empty fields, graveyards, trying to understand, trying to forgive, trying to make peace with the truth that her father died protecting something he couldn't stop. And Shadow had carried that burden until his final breath. Then, one night, a package arrived. No return address. Inside, a worn leather notebook. Her father's handwriting. First page. If you're reading this, I didn't make it. But he did. He remembers. He will find you. When he does, listen to him. Trust him. Everything depends on that. The final page. A sketch of the red bench by the lake. And the words, not all ghosts haunt. Some guard. On the anniversary of Shadow's death, Lena returned to the tree again. She didn't cry. She didn't speak. She just stood. And then slowly, she placed the notebook beneath the roots, with the tag, and the photo, and walked away. She didn't need answers anymore. She had a truth the world didn't deserve. But someone had to carry it, just like he did. The snow came early that year. Lena watched it fall outside her apartment window, thick flakes dancing under the pale city light. It had been 1 year, 3 months and 9 days since she placed her father's notebook beneath the old oak tree. 1 year, 3 months, and 9 days since she buried the last proof of everything she knew. Or thought she knew. She hadn't written anything new. She hadn't spoken to Cole in months. And though the world had moved on, blurred by politics, protests, and headlines that came and went like trains, Lena had not. She lived quietly. An editor by day. A ghost by night. Carrying a silence so deep it echoed. Then, one morning, she received a letter. A real letter. Stamped. No return address. But the handwriting. She recognized it. Cole. I thought it was over too. But something's changed. We need to talk. I found another one. She met him in a diner just off Route 41. The same one they'd used before, where coffee always tasted burned and the waitress called everyone honey. Cole looked older. Not just in years, but in weight. As if gravity had grown cruel. He placed a single photograph on the table. It showed a dog. German Shepherd. Broad frame. Piercing eyes. But not Shadow. Younger. Scarred. Chained to a post in what looked like an underground facility. Found this on a dead server in Poland, Cole said. Leaked last month. Photos 6 years old. Is it one of them? Lena asked. He nodded. And he's not alone. They restarted the program. New country, new flag, but same science. They're building more. Lena stared at the photo. There was something in the dog's eyes. Not rage, not fear. Memory. They think it's over, Cole continued. But these dogs, some of them still remember what they were. Who they belonged to. Lena whispered. Who they were loyal to. That night, she read her father's notebook again. Page by page. Line by line. Trying to see what he saw. Feel what he felt. Then, she paused. Near the back, in the corner of a page, barely visible under faded ink. Coordinates. She checked them. Romania. A village with no name. She didn't ask permission. Didn't tell friends. Just booked a flight. Rented a car. And drove east until the roads turned to gravel. And the gravel turned to dirt. The village was half abandoned. One store. One tavern. No internet. No cell service. She found the man by the well. Old. Blind in one eye. Smelled of earth and ash. You're the daughter, he said without turning. Lena froze. You knew my father? He shook his head. I knew the dog. The man's house sat at the edge of a frozen field. He spoke in slow, cracked English. Came here winter of '08. Half dead. Ate nothing. Slept beneath the barn. I named him Negru, the black one. Lena's eyes welled. Shadow. The man nodded. He stayed 2 seasons. Protected the children. Fought off a wolf once. Then, left. He handed her a box. Inside, an old photo. Shadow lying beside a child. And a collar. The same tag. Her father's. He buried it in the snow before he left, the man said. Like he knew someone would come. That night, Lena stood in the barn. The cold bit through her coat. Her fingers trembled. She closed her eyes and listened. Not for footsteps, but for breath. For the ghost of a heartbeat in the straw. She heard nothing. And yet, she felt seen. The next morning she returned to the city. She knew now. Shadow had traveled farther than anyone believed, carrying the tag, guarding the message, living the promise. He hadn't just found her. He'd found many. And maybe he wasn't the only one. Lena called Cole. What if there are others like him, still out there? Not just dogs, but people. Veterans. Scientists. Whistleblowers. Survivors. All waiting to be found. Cole was silent. Then, you want to start something? No, she said. I want to finish it. They called it The Watch. Not an agency. Not a movement. Just a network. Of listeners. People who watched, who remembered, who carried the old codes and honored the ones who never came home. Their first mission, find the dogs. Over the next 6 months, Lena traveled to 4 countries. She found 3 dogs. 1 feral, 1 broken. 1 still guarding an abandoned school like it was sacred. None of them barked, but all of them came when she called Shadow's name. They remembered. Not her, but the legacy. Then, one night, she found the 5th, in the ruins of an old train station in Slovakia. He was massive, silver gray, a scar over one eye. And when he saw her, he didn't move, just stared, then turned, and walked. She followed, through the station, into the forest, until they reached a clearing lit by moonlight. There, in the center, was a grave, unmarked, fresh. And beside it, another tag. Her father's unit. Different number. Different dog. Same purpose. Lena knelt. She placed her hand on the soil and whispered, "Thank you." The dog stood still, then, gently, placed his paw over hers. A gesture of recognition, a goodbye, a promise. Lena returned to the US weeks later. She wrote again. This time, not just a book, but a call. To those who remember, who carry ghosts, who walk beside dogs no one else sees. We are not alone. We are the Watch. And we never forget. The website launched quietly. The inbox filled faster than they expected. Stories, reports, sightings, memories. Of dogs, of soldiers, of oaths never broken. And in the center of it all, one line, etched in every header, every tag, every collar. He didn't bark. He stood.